now Rivka agrees to go right with Eliezer. So then we have this episode over here where they actually sleep over at night. That's what happened, right? They slept over. In the morning they left. That's the way it was. So it says, right, exactly. And also there were some girls that went with her because, this kind of family, these were like noble people. What does that mean? They had like a lot of wealth and stuff, So they also had like when they married off a daughter, they also had like maidservants that went with the daughter and to help her out, all these kinds of things. That's the way it was. So it says, "Vatokom Rivka benarotea, v'tirkeben tena al gemalim v'telachna achrei haish v'yikach ha'eved et Rivka v'yelach." So it says right in the morning, they got on the camels and they rode together with Eliezer, these girls and Rivka, and they went on the way to go back to Israel. So it says right that Yitzchak at that time, when they came to Israel, he was in the south, in Beersheba, in the area of Beersheba. What was he doing over there? Because he was trying to find Hagar. Who was Hagar? Hagar was the concubine, right, of the second wife of Avram Avinu, after Sarah, right? And what happened was that, as we said, he threw them out at a certain time. They got thrown out. So now, after Sarah Imenu died, and Yitzchak also was getting married now with Rivka, so they say, right, Chazal, that if a person, let's say, is older, right, and his wife, died or whatever, right, so became a widower, right? So they say that if your child is marriageable age, first marry your child, and then also take a wife for yourself. You shouldn't stay alone like that without a wife, just because you're, God forbid, right? If the wife died or whatever, or a person got divorced or whatever it is, doesn't mean you should stay alone all his life like that. You should remarry. That's what you should do, And that's what he was doing over here. He was bringing Hagar. He was looking for Hagar to bring her back, so that also his father should get remarried. He shouldn't stay alone, because now he's leaving the family. He's going to make his own family. So he also has been taken care of. A person shouldn't be alone in the house without anybody to help him, to take care of him. It's hard to live like that. So this is why he went and he brought her back. That's the reason why he was there. So now, all of a sudden, they come, Eliezer and Rivka, and they spot him, right? And when they spotted him, he was in the middle of doing a mitzvah. He was just finished with a mitzvah. What was the mitzvah that he was doing? They say, right, the Chazal, that Avraham Avinu instituted the Shachrit prayer, the morning prayer, right? He was the one who brought that in, instituted that. Yitzchak instituted the Mincha prayer, which is the afternoon prayer. And the evening prayer was instituted, night prayer was by Yaakov. So all these prayers were instituted by our forefathers. So at this time they say he instituted the Mincha prayer, which was the evening prayer, before night, the right afternoon prayer. And after he finished the prayer, exactly now he sees all of a sudden that Eliezer is coming with the camels and with Rivka and all this. So they say, right, that Rivka, once she spotted this guy, Yitzchak, she sees him.
The question coming up or not?
Yeah, okay. So what happens is that now she says, she asked Eliezer, he says, who is this man over there? So why, she didn't really know that this was Yitzchak, but he looked like an important guy, they say, right? Like somebody chashuv, somebody prominent, whatever. So once she saw that, she asked him, like, who is this? Looks like somebody very holy, angelic kind of guy. They say, by the way, how did she know that? How did she spot that he was so holy, whatever? So they say that he was holding his hands up like this in prayer, he was praying to God, whatever. So when she saw that, it showed that he was a holy man, whatever. That's why she asked him this question, right? Who's this guy? So he tells him, this is my master's son, this is the one you're going to marry, this is him, right? This is him. So once she spotted him and like that, and she knew who he was, so then she leaned off the camel, right? And she bowed a little bit, because she wanted to humble herself before Yitzchak, to make herself humility, act with humility, whatever. She didn't want to just be still with her head up high, like that. It was like she had a good manners, good behavior. This is what she did, yeah.
It says that she bowed down or she covered herself?
Both. It says both, right? Let's read the pasuk and see. Let's see.
Because
right?
nobody can answer that question.
So let's see, right? Let's see what the pasuk says. So first it says, right, she fell off the camel. This is what it means that she bowed down, she went down. And then it says after that, ותאמר העבד, מי האיש הזה ההולך אל העבד, מי האיש הזה ההולך בסדר לקראתנו, ויאמר העבד, הוא אדוני, ותיקח הצעיף So then it says she took the veil and she covered herself also, right? So she did two things, right? Yeah.
First she bowed down.
Yeah.
Then she asked.
That's the way the pasuk says, yeah, like you're saying, yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, because you know what it
First
is?
you ask.
Yeah.
Then you bow down.
Right, but you know what it is?
If
Because
I already acknowledge who you are, so why am I asking?
right, but yeah.
Number one. Number two, it says that she covered up. In other words, when she was driving and walking and doing on the camel, she
wasn't covered. Right.
Does it make sense? In front of your husband, you cover up. In front of a stranger, you don't cover up. Explain.
You see what he's asking? Okay, so let's try to explain this. The way it works is like this, right? As we said, when she saw that this guy was a prominent person, so she already like bowed herself, you know.
Oh.
Even though she didn't know who it was yet. So that was, and then she asked Eliezer, who is this man? So then when she told her, right, this is the guy you're going to marry, so then she covered herself, right? So what does it mean covered herself? You shouldn't think, by the way, that she was like walking around naked, whatever. She wasn't going in a bikini, you know? That's not what we're talking, right? What we're saying is that she was dressed, but she covered her head. That's what it means, right? Yeah. Why did she cover her head?
In front of Eliezer, she wasn't covered. In front of her future husband, she covered.
You have an answer for that? It's a good question. It's actually a good question.
I don't know, but I remember when Obama bowed down to the Arab sheiks, he wasn't covered.
Bow down also? Did the Arab sheik cover his face? No, I'm serious.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
That's the question that I have.
It's a very good question. But, you know, just out of a simple understanding of what's going on here, you know what it is? The reason she covered herself, not because she had to, because you should know, by the way, that the rule, what's the rule? The rule is that a woman who's single doesn't have to cover her hair. Only a married woman has to cover her hair. You know what I mean? So that's exactly the reason why. You know, once she came now to this guy, you know, who's going to be her husband, so it seems like that's the reason why. You know, because she wanted to, you know, because she saw the holiness of this man.
Okay, once she got engaged, she was already married. So right there, she was supposed to cover her hair. My whole point is that...
Oh, she wasn't engaged yet. She wasn't engaged yet. Are you saying because she gave her those gifts, he gave her the gifts?
The whole trip was the Eliezer, she should have been covered.
You see what he's asking? It's a very good question. So you know what the answer is to that question? The answer is like this. When a woman gets married, okay? So once she gets married, she has to cover her hair. That's halakha. Right, but I'm just telling you. Let's go step by step. Let's go step by step. We'll cover the whole thing.
Was she engaged already?
Okay, we'll cover everything. Let's go step by step. When a woman gets married, she has to cover her hair. That's the way it is. The question is, when is she supposed to cover her hair? So let me explain to you. As we said right last week, there's two stages in marriage. There's kiddushin, and then there's chuppah. Right? So what is kiddushin? Giving of the ring. Right? By the way, the customary thing is to give a ring. The truth is, a person can also give her something else, anything which is worth money. You can give her, you know, give her a cell phone or a watch or whatever it is. Anything. Just the custom is to give a ring. You know what I mean? That's the why I say ring. So once you give the ring, she's betrothed to you. Okay. Now the question is, at that point, does she have to cover her hair? The answer is no. Okay. So what does that mean? When you do the wedding, when you do the chuppah, right? Does she have to cover her hair during the wedding? And the answer is no. You know why? Let me explain to you why. Because the truth is, right, we said last week that a woman, when she goes into the chuppah, they do both things. They do the kiddushin there, and they do also the chuppah. What is the chuppah? The brachot that they do, right? The blessings. They give the ketubah to the girl. All this whole ceremony, it's called the chuppah. By the way, now what's the problem? So then, when she goes out to dance with her, you know, with everybody in the wedding during the party, and he's dancing, she's dancing, they're both dancing, but she doesn't have to cover her hair at that time. What's the reason why? But they already did the chuppah, they already did the kiddushin. So why not?
Because it was not consummated.
Why? What wasn't consummated? So let me explain to you how that works. Not exactly that word. The word that you use, it's not what it is. The way it works is like this, right? The consummation of the marriage is only done when you go home with her. When you take her home and bring her into your house. You have a house, right? You have a house, whatever, you have a shack, whatever you live in. You bring her into your house, that's really the chuppah. The chuppah is when you bring her to your home. Even though you didn't do any intercourse, right, as you mentioned, right? Well, as long as you brought her into the house, now they're married. So therefore, this is the reason why the girl doesn't cover her hair during the wedding. Because it's not considered to be chuppah yet.
I understand.
You understand?
Marriage is finalized right after the intercourse. Open up
It has nothing to do with intercourse. It has to do with bringing it to your house.
Like I said, open up Betula, Gemara Betula, and really
Right. But you know what it is? Sometimes, let me give you an example, okay? For instance, sometimes...
I think that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to argue, debate what's what, but probably the law of bringing her into the house logically makes sense because when you take a woman
Okay, question.
to your home, when you take
You broke her house, and the husband died. Immediately. Was she married, yes or no?
yes,
Yes.
No.
I tell you why, Jimmy.
No.
Jimmy, I tell you why. I met someone one time that told me, he swore, he lived with a woman for a year. He hated her guts so much that he couldn't touch her. Now, you go and prove to someone that a woman was actually married for a year, but she never slept,
The marriage was never consummated.
So let me explain to you guys how it works, man. I don't know where you got this idea.
Okay, never mind.
When we learn...
My question is very simple.
It's a tricky question.
On the road, she didn't cover her hair. If you tell me that you have to cover your hair while the ring is down, then the ring is done during the...
You don't have to. You don't have to cover your hair.
No problem. You don't have to cover it. You are telling me right now that even when the chuppah is red, after that they're dancing, she doesn't have to cover.
Yeah.
My point is, the chuppah was not done.
Absolutely.
Why did she cover? Wonderful. She wants to show the modesty. No problem.
Is there significance to it?
It's a logical question. You want to show your modesty? No problem. But on this road, you show your modesty to your husband as if you are a nice, pretty girl, and with the slave, you are not modest? That's where I have the problem.
Actually, this question is a very good question, but, the truth is that the reason why she covered her hair at this point was not because she had to. That's not
No problem.
Yeah.
I don't care why she had to. The point is not she had to or she did not have to. Why did she? Because she just felt for it? That's the answer that I got from one of the rabbis.
Yeah.
Because she just felt like covering her.
And
once I got this answer, I said, okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
I can give you an example, by the way, of in our times, and maybe you understand. Okay, if you ever saw, right, the president when he went to one of these the Vatican, he went to. So when they went into that guy over there, right, which I'm not going to say his name.
Okay, that's right.
So
I forgot his name.
right, yeah. So when they went over there to this guy. His wife is Catholic, you understand? They have deal, We don't believe in this religion, but what I'm saying is that she does believe in it. So when she saw him, she covered her hair. Yeah, you understand? Now you understand? So meaning what? That when Rivka saw Yitzhak, she wanted to show like a form of respect and like an awe, showing respect to, like, you go to a big rabbi. And you show your respect, you cover your hair. That's what it was. That's the reason why. That's the reason why.
When I met your wife?
Yeah.
And she wouldn't shake my hand, and I didn't know why back then.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know.
Yeah. You thought it was because of germs.
No. Later I realized right away, even though she explained herself, because I put out my hand and she went like this. If she wasn't married to you, could she shake my hand?
Good question. Good question. But before I just answer this question, I just want to get this straight with you guys, because these halachot regarding the marriage, we learn in Shulchan Aruch. We don't just make it up from the sky. Bring it down from right. I'm sorry.
It's in the Gemara.
It's in the Gemara and it's in the Shulchan Aruch. So in the Shulchan Aruch it says the marriage is consummated.
By heart.
Right. The Shulchan Aruch is consummated when? Is when you bring her into the house. You don't have to have intercourse to consummate the marriage.
And if the guy died,
you're married. Yeah, you're married. You're a widow now. You're a widow. Considered to be a widow.
Because it's not consummated.
No, it's not true.
A lot of the laws.
To be honest with you,
a lot of the laws, with all due respect to you, are made to prevent things from happening. Like when I was getting married, when Abraham prepared me, Rabbi Abraham, our rabbi, he told me about not touching a woman for 2 weeks or whatever. And I dug into it like Jimmy's digging to this deeply, for significance, whatever. And he said, it's not, you're not allowed to touch because you're going to get dirty or something.
It's not germs.
Because when you touch, that'll lead to something else.
That's also true, yeah.
And that will lead to something else, and all of a sudden, there you are all over her.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to be doing that while she's going through that period.
Yes.
So a lot of the laws are made
It's a safeguard.
as a safeguard.
Yeah, he's right.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with that.
But here, when we're talking about, these things are from the Torah, these things, you know? So,
Let me ask you a
yeah, you
question.
don't need intercourse to consummate the marriage. You know, I can prove it to you. There are sometimes, by the way, a person gets married,
Yes.
and his wife she becomes a nidah during the wedding. So he can't have intercourse. But the marriage is consummated. No, they are. Once they go into the house, that's it, they're married. They're finished,
From
over.
that
That's
day,
it.
I knew I was cursed.
They're married.
No,
That's
no,
it.
that happened to me.
It happens, yeah.
And it led to a lot of issues.
Interesting.
Yeah, it led to a lot of issues.
Interesting.
Because what happens is when a man is hyped up,
Right,
especially at that age,
right.
you know, and you can't do anything for a month or whatever.
It's very hard. Yeah.
You know, then you become,
Sure.
you know, you become
Irritation.
It's a big test. It's a big trial.
And then,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you feel that you have to do it, and something happens, like, I don't want to get into it.
Yeah,
But it led to a lot of issues.
Yeah, sure. It can lead to a lot of things.
When a
Yeah.
rabbi reads a ketubah,
Yeah.
הרי את מקודשת לי.
Right. That's the kiddushin.
That's to kiddush.
Yeah.
Whatever. Who says li?
The husband.
Wonderful. A guy is at the wedding, and together with the husband, he says li also.
Somebody else is there.
Yeah, somebody. There's a.
And somebody, he also says li.
Yes. Every time Rabbi reads the ketubah, he says, say the word out li loud. They stress the word li.
Okay.
So that his li would overshadow everybody else's li.
Right.
Who is she married? The Khatan or some poor schmuck that said li?
No, that's nothing. The guy what he said. That's nothing. What's the reason why? Because her kavanah, her intention is not on that guy. You know, she's not willing to marry that guy. So that's for sure. Huh?
This guy is also obligated to something.
Nah, we don't.
Ask Rabbi Katz, man.
It's not true. It's not
I'm
true.
serious.
That's not the halacha.
I'm serious. Yes. We want nothing.
With all due respect to Rabbi Katz, God bless him. God bless his soul.
Oh, Rabbi Katz from Chavetz Chaim. Oh my God.
Okay, so Rabbi, let's go on. So Rabbi, now we're saying like this.
That's what we learned in the
You have to relearn it. You have to relearn it now as an adult. You learn it as a
I was in the
kid.
bathroom with Gosha, so
Yeah. When you learn something as a kid, sometimes you don't remember the details. You know, I learned this stuff when I was, already like, kind of like older. So it's a little bit different when you learn it as a professional. You learn it as a kid. It's not the same thing.
What is the argument, basically? If you're married,
Never mind the argument.
Before you get home-
Why did she cover her hair? Why didn't she cover the hair during the trip? That's there.
Because she didn't feel the awe. She felt the awe with this guy. That's the whole thing. ויספר העבד אל יצחק את כל הדברים אשר עשה. So now, right, they came, and he told Yitzchak all the things that occurred. What does that mean? What was there to tell? That Kadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle for him. That he got there right away, the same day that he left. The ground shrank for him, and he got there. He told him that. He also told him that the miracle that Kadosh Baruch Hu made, that when he prayed to find the right girl, Kadosh Baruch Hu sent the right girl right away.
So he told the whole story again.
Yeah, no, not the whole story. He doesn't say the whole story, but he told him these two things, right? Why? Because he needed to know. He wanted to tell him, right, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu helped him to find, right, yes.
Oh, sure.
By the way, what you're pointing out is also a very strong question in the sense that what he's saying about this, that she didn't cover herself and so forth and so on. He only covered herself when she saw Yitzchak. The truth is, right, they say that there is significance to what you're saying. Why? Because they say that Yitzchak, when they got there to meet Yitzchak had suspicion that maybe they had some hanky-panky on the road. You understand?
That's the next question I have.
Yeah.
The blessing that Yitzchak gave him.
So it could be, by the way, that this is the reason why. Because when he spotted that she was only being modest when she saw him, all of a sudden this probably put up some connotations in his head. What happened before that? Why wasn't she covering her before that? So it must be that there was some she was trying to maybe whatever. You understand?
How come Hashem didn't form the road so they would get home to request them?
Well, it doesn't say, by the way, they didn't. So I cannot tell you they didn't.
It says that they spent the night.
Right, that means over there, the house. They spent the night, because you know why? Right, the house, right, they left, yeah. And the reason, by the way, they say they spent the night in the house is because you're not supposed to start traveling at night. It's not supposed to be a good thing, to start traveling at night. By the way, we're talking about those days, because in those days there was no lights, there was no highways, it was very dangerous to go out at night. You could get robbed, like very easily, whatever. Today it's very different. You go out, everything is lighting, everything is, there's everything.
So should we change some laws?
Traveling at night is not right. This law doesn't apply today, right? For sure, it doesn't apply today. There is a law like that. It's really a law actually. It actually is a law, but it doesn't apply in our times, so much. But the truth is, you should know, by the way, that there is still some remnant of that law today as well. What does that mean? Because there's also a problem with the night. The night is a time of spiritual darkness as well. There's danger. There's spiritual danger. You understand? So the truth is that it's not a good thing to go out at night and start, traveling because of that reason. You don't want to start, where they say, right, that during the daytime, the good forces rule over the world. At night, the bad forces rule over the world. You understand? It's like a shift. It's a shift.
What if you're going to the underground at night?
Yeah. Okay. So you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's that still by the way applies in our times as well. That at night, the shift is given over to the bad angels, to the bad powers. So still there's at night, certain things that a person has to know. By the way, there are ways also to prevent these problems. We don't get to get to it now. This is not the word discussion, but maybe some other time we'll discuss these things. But it says, right, so it says something interesting, right? That once the whole discussion was over with Eliezer and this and that, so he brings her into the house. As we said, right, the chuppah is bringing her to her house. So now we have the chuppah. So what did he see over there, right? He saw that this was a righteous woman. How did he know? They say, right, that there was a few things when his wife, Sarah Imenu, his mother, was alive, there were certain blessings that were in the house, and those blessings stopped when she died. And then, now, all of a sudden, when Rivka came, the blessings came back, right? So they say, what was the blessings that Sarah Imenu had when she was alive? One thing, that there was a cloud over the house all the time. We're not talking about a rain cloud, right? We're talking about a Shekhinah was there. The divine presence was there. In the merit of Sarah Imenu, that's what happens. When you have a good woman in the house, you have blessing in the home, You have God's presence in the house. So that's you need a woman like that, somebody who's going to bring presence of holiness in your house. That's the way it was. So once he saw that the cloud came back, the Shekhinah came back, divine presence came back. That's one thing. Number two, he also saw, right, two other things, which is what? One is that when she would light the candle on Shabbat, Sarah Imenu, it would last all week, that candle, right? Miraculously, it wouldn't go out. All week it would last. So there was no blessing with the light. And also, there's another thing. They say, right, when she would make a challah, the bread, in the house, so that would also have a special blessing. That what's the blessing, by the way, on the bread? They say that when food is blessed, a person eats a little bit and becomes full. It doesn't need to eat a lot. There's a blessing on the food. So that you eat a little bit and it satiates you and it lasts you for a week. They say the same thing about lechem hapanim, right? What is that, lechem hapanim? There was a show bread, which is in the Bet HaMikdash. This bread, it was done once a week. They used to bake it on Erev Shabbat and they would put it, on the table. There was a special table there in the Bet HaMikdash, and that bread would stay fresh all week, and they would eat. The Kohanim were eating that, and each one was getting only a kazait. Stay, Johnny. Stay with us, Johnny. Okay, God bless you. All the best. Bye. So they say, right, the Kohanim, when they used to eat the showbread, each one would get only one kazait, which is like the size of olive, and they would satiate him. So there was a special blessing just like that. The same thing over here we have. You understand that this bread had a blessing on it. So you could eat only one kazait, which is an olive size, and that would satiate you, and it also stayed fresh all week. Can you imagine you buy bread, it stays fresh all week. It's the way you put it in the freezer. It's also another way to do it, but we're talking about without the freezer. So that's the way it was over time. So once he saw all these signs, he said, this lady's righteous just like my mother was. So he was satisfied. He felt to say, spiritually, that he was content with that. That now he found somebody to take the place of his mother. They say, by the way, that that's the way it is. That until a person gets married, so he feels comfortable with his mother, like he's like, drawn after his mother. And then once he gets married, he leaves the mother and goes with the wife, so he has to find comfort in his wife, solace, with his wife, just like he had with his mother. That's the way it is. Okay, let's go on about that. So now that episode is pretty much over. We're going to the next chapter. So it says, "Vayosef Avraham leikach isha ushma keturah." So now, right, as we said, once the marriage was over with Yitzchak, they got married. Now we're taking care of Avraham, right? Who also doesn't have a wife, his father, it's whatever. So now they brought, as we said, Yitzchak brought Keturah back, Hagar, which is Keturah's Hagar, they say, right? So the question is, why they call her Keturah? The Chazal say her real name was Hagar. By the way, they say the Rambam says, truthfully, that when a person does tshuva, becomes a Baal tshuva, he should change his name, So this could be, that's the reason why they changed her name over here. Also they say, right, when a person converts, like from another religion to Judaism, also should change his name, So she was also a convert, whatever. So she changed, I guess they changed her name because of these two reasons, whatever. But they say also there's a reason why they called her this name, Keturah. Why? There's two things which are, right, the mashma from here, right? They come out from this, the implication. What's the implication? The implication is, one is ketoret, right, which was the incense which was offered on the Beit HaMikdash. This was a very good smell, like you burn it and it makes a whole beautiful smell in the whole Beit HaMikdash, and it was had a very great power. So they say, right, she was sweet like ketoret. She had good. Her behavior was very, very fine. Fine woman, righteous woman. She became a righteous woman. Even though in the beginning she had her problems, she had her issues, all kinds of things. But now, until this time, she already, wised up. She learned her lesson in life, and now she became a really righteous woman. So she was now really fitting to be with Avraham Avinu.
The opposite can happen also.
Yeah, sure. They can go down the tubes. Yeah, degenerate. Right. That's also true. Yeah, women can go down the tubes. But here, what happened was that also there's another reason why they called her this name, because the word keturah is also like keshur, right? Why? Because these two letters, shin and tet, are interchangeable. In Hebrew and Aramaic. So what does that mean, keshura? That means she was tied up. What does that mean? All the time that she was divorced from Avraham Avinu, all this time, she never went with another man. She never lived with another man. So she was like, she kept faithful to Avraham Avinu, even though she wasn't married to him, and she got right, exactly. So all this time she kept her vows, yeah.
When she left Avraham Avinu, he gave her a get, or she just left?
You see what I'm asking? It's a very good question. Why is this a good question? Because the truth is, right, if you go in the later psukim over here, in the later verses, it says over here like this, right? I'm scrolling down a little bit. So it says, so it says, right, that to the sons of the concubines, Avraham Avinu gave gifts, it says over here, right? So now, who was a concubine? Concubine, there was only one was Hagar. So if that's the case, what is a concubine? That's the difference between a wife and a concubine. Concubine is pilegesh in Hebrew, we say, right? Pilegesh. What's the difference between pilegesh and a wife? There's two ways to take a woman. So pilegesh means that she doesn't have a ketubah, she doesn't have a chuppah. So basically, you have her without these things. That's called pilegesh.
Just the concubine.
Yeah. Girlfriend, but it's still a bit different. I have to explain to you what that means. That a wife is what? A wife is you have ketubah, you have chuppah, you have kiddushin.
Sounds like a vegetable, concubine.
It comes squat.
That's interesting. Okay. Anyway, as he mentioned now, the thing is that did she require a get? When she left, yes. Or whatever. So if it's true what we're saying that she was a concubine, she was a pilegesh, doesn't require a get. The pilegesh doesn't require. So as we said over time, that pilegesh doesn't have all these things. So what's the difference between a girlfriend and a pilegesh? We have to understand what that means, right? It's really almost the same thing. So what's the difference? The difference is that a girlfriend, in theory, she could go with many different guys. You never know if she's being faithful to you or not being faithful to you. It's the whole thing about that, right? In society, she cheated on me, she didn't cheat on me, this, that, whatever, all these things. But a girlfriend, she doesn't really necessarily have to be only with you. She could also go out with some other guys. You understand? But pilegesh, The concubine has to be only with you. She has to be designated only for you.
But she lives with you, so automatically she is with you.
Right, but she could also go cheat on you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, concubine?
Yeah.
So
A wife can also do that. She's not allowed to do that, but she can.
Right, after it happens
You know?
all the
So,
time.
yeah, it happens all the time. So what we're saying is that concubine means she's designated only for you.
Yeah. So a girl,
But if she goes with-
so
with-
a
yeah,
girlfriend
sorry.
who's not married is forgiven for that, for sleeping around and
Amazing questions you guys are asking. We have to answer these questions. We're going to answer them now. Okay,
brought it up, so
let's go through it, because we have to understand what we're dealing with. You get married, you have to know what you're dealing with. You're single, you have to know what you're dealing with then. So the rule is over there like this, that as we said, a concubine has no ketubah, has no chuppah, and therefore doesn't require a get. The only thing is that she has to be only with you. If she goes with another man besides you, that's called something else. What is that called? Zonah. Right. Prostitute. That's a prostitute. In the definition of halakha, zonah means she goes with different men.
to anybody.
Right,
Official.
right. But she goes with several men. That's called zonah.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Isn't that called dating?
Well,
It's called
right. Well, dating is one thing, but we're talking here about relations, sexual relations. You understand that? We're talking about that. We're not talking about dating. We're talking about contacts. So if she's going with several men, by the way, this is what happens, that many girls, they go out with this guy, and then she goes out with another guy the next week, So this is not allowed, because once she goes out with this guy, she's now, cheating on this guy, so right, exactly. That's
she
zonah.
went
Yeah.
out with you from good faith, and you weren't a good match.
Yeah.
And it happened that she had physical.
Right, she had contact. So what do you got to do now, right? That's your question. Yeah, that's a good question.
What are we supposed to do?
What are you supposed to do?
Kill her.
So you have to break it off first. You have to break off the relationship. Just say, listen, let's break up, right? And then you don't need a get, but what you have to do, the woman has to wait now 3 months before she goes with another man. And the reason is because we have to make sure that she's not pregnant, whatever, because of pregnancy, to identify who the child is from.
So she gets forgiven.
Well, I'm sorry?
So she can be forgiven.
But you have to understand also another thing, that when we talk about pilegesh, we're not talking about just the regular girlfriend. We already described how. But there's also another reason. Pilegesh means, first of all, she has to be Jewish, obviously, right? It cannot be non-Jewish. It's not called pilegesh. It's called, it's goya, it's something else, right? We're not talking about that. There's no such a thing as a pilegesh who's not Jewish. That's one thing, right? Number two, there's also another thing about that. When you have a Jewish girl, she has to go to the mikveh also. Even though she's not married to you, she has to go to the mikveh. So when you're a pilegesh, that means she goes also to the mikveh just like a married woman. Otherwise, she's a nida. That's what you have also different. So you understand?
Okay,
These things are quite.
She performed all those
not so
things.
simple, right? Yeah.
But it happened that there was some mistake made. There was some touching, and she slept.
So you
with this
break
guy,
up, and then she's
right.
right.
She was going to marry.
So
but it didn't work.
Right. So you got to break up, and you got to wait 3 months. That's the way the halakha.
I see. So she's forgiven.
There's nothing to forgive. She didn't sin. You understand?
So if she went to bed with a guy that she dated,
according now let me tell you something interesting. Okay, regarding this rule of pilegesh, there is a dispute today amongst the authorities whether today it's allowed to do that. Okay, some say it's allowed to do, some say it's not allowed to do this. Whatever, I don't want to get into it now. This is not the discussion. We can talk about this privately, by the way, between you. It's not something you discuss over the airwaves. These kinds of things.
No, but it's good to know.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Learned person.
Sure. I can tell you, by the way, no problem. After we can discuss all these things. Right, in the car. Right.
Yeah.
So, but the rule is Rabbi, the pilegesh requires mikveh, and also to be only with you. Because if she's going with another guy, she's zonah. That's something else, right? That's a different story. Even if she's going to mikveh, right? She's still zonah. Doesn't make any difference.
What if she waits the 3 months? Then
she's not zonah. She's not zonah because she's going one by one. She's not going 2 by 2. You understand? That's something else. It's a different story.
It's very tricky.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. You have to know all these rules.
It's very tricky.
So when you want to do all kinds of things like this, you want to have a wife. You have to ask a rabbi how to do these things. Somebody who knows these laws, somebody who studied them, and knows these things, really clearly. And exactly, that's the way it's got to be done. You can set up these things in a clean way.
A woman is allowed to remarry.
Sure.
Okay. And the fact that she's allowed to remarry.
Yeah.
means that she had someone before or many, and because she may have made some mistakes in her life, doesn't mean that you throw her away. Or
No. She can remarry. She needs a get from her husband
and be happy.
Yeah, sure. She needs a get from her husband first of all.
Yeah.
Once she gets a get, she can remarry. It's not a problem. Or if the husband died, she's a widow, so she doesn't need a get. She can just remarry without a get. Okay, so let's go on about that. So it says, so now we're talking about the sons that she had from Abraham. There's 5 more sons that came after already Ishmael was born, right? This was already before, like way before. Now we're talking about more sons. So who are these, right? So it says in the pasuk, ותלד לו את זמרן ואת יוקשן ואת מדן ואת מדיין ואת ישבק ואת שוח. These 5 sons now, she gave birth to them after the second time that they got married. And, if you'd like to know, by the way, who these people are, we always want to identify everybody in the world, right? We want to know. We don't want to know who's who, right? So these sons of the Pilagshim, who are they today? So the truth is that there's 2 theories about this. There seems to be one very good theory, one theory which is a little bit not so good. Right? The Rambam says that the Bnei Keturah, the ones that were born, these people, now they became basically they're together with the Arabs, with Ishmael. So they form basically one society together with them, and they're pretty much now united, as one people. So these 5 sons, according to the Rambam, they are Muslims now today. These are the Muslims. So the Muslims are who? They're Ishmael and these 5 sons together in one unit. That's the Muslim nation. That's the Muslim people, basically. That's according to the Rambam. There are also who want to say something else, but there's no really corroboration for that. What they want to say is that these sons that came to Abraham are the Oriental people, China, Japan, all these places. There are some who want to say like that. But really, the truth is that there's no corroboration for that, though. I must tell you, it's a nice theory, it's a nice theory, but I don't really know if it's true. It seems to me that it's really not true. But anyway, okay, whatever. But the point is that these 5 sons, right, they also had more sons, as we say, the Yokshan Yirat Sheba, Bet Dedan, Ubret Dedan, Hayu Ashurim, Utushim, Ulomim, that tells you, right, what nations came out of these sons.
Are they the ones that Moses dwells with for a while when he's
you're right. Yeah, because one of them is Midian, right, as we're going to see over here.
They're the obedient ones.
So it says, right, these are the ones that Midian, that's where Moshe Rabbeinu went to hide from Paro.
Yeah.
He became over there king, by the way. They made him a king over there. So this Midian was one of the descendants of these nations. One of the nations came out of Abraham Avinu. But the truth is, right, even though they came from Abraham Avinu, they later on had wars with the Jews. There was all kinds of animosity. There wasn't such a friendly relationship with these people. You understand? So now, what happened with these sons? Were they righteous? They were not righteous. So they say the Chazal that these sons were not so righteous. They were not so pure like Yitzchak was. Yitzchak was really a tzaddik. These were not. They came out to be not so great, not so hot. So what happened was that Abraham Avinu, once he saw them that they're not worthy to inherit, the Jewish line, to become a part of the Jewish heritage, so what he did was he sent them away. He gave them some gifts. It says, right, matanot. It says, right, gave them gifts. By the way, the question is, what gifts did he give them? Some say it was actual gifts, like jewelry and stuff, like money, stuff like that. He gave them money. And some say there was something else. He gave them Shem Tuma. You know what that means, Shem Tuma? That means that he gave them some kind of some magic tricks, like black magic kind of thing. Abraham Avinu knew all these things. So since he saw that they were not worthy of doing, from Kedusha, from the holiness, attaching themselves to the holiness, like the Jewish people, so he gave them the unholy stuff, all the tricks and all these things, these black magic and, sorcery. He taught them all these kinds of things, and he sent them away with that. That's what he gave them. So he gave them exactly what they were, because they weren't really worthy of being, attaching themselves to the holiness. That's exactly what they gave them. And by the way, you see that today that amongst the these people, these Eastern people, we're talking about all these Muslims, Pakistan and Afghanistan, all these places. These are the people we're talking about here. These sons, right? So you see over there, they also have all kinds of these all kinds of methods of sorcery and stuff. They have all kinds of things that they do. These people. So it seems like there's a tradition that they came from Abraham Avinu.
Yeah.
These things, until this day they practice all kinds of things like that. It's interesting. So anyway, but he says, in the end, so then what, it says over here something interesting, that Abraham Avinu gave everything to Yitzchak though. Even though he had these 5 other sons, he also had Ishmael, he gave everything to Yitzchak. What does that mean? That in terms of his inheritance, his wealth, everything went to Yitzchak. And also his spiritual, inheritance gave to Yitzchak, the Torah. But I just told you something which seems to contradict that. I just told you that he gave these sons also some money and some wealth, or some jewelry, whatever. He gave them. So how do we reconcile these two things? So the answer is like this. That Abraham Avinu, when he was younger, he also made some money in some ways which were not so, the most kosher ways. What does that mean? As they say the Chazal, right, that when he went to Paro with his wife Sarah, so Paro gave gifts to Avraham Avinu because he thought that he was going to marry Sarah. He thought she was single. So they got all kinds of gifts from Paro. They got all kinds of gifts from Avimelech, also another king. The same thing happened. So all that money that Avraham Avinu got from these kings, which were not really, the most kosher way to acquire the money, because it was like false pretense. You understand? It was a false premise over here. So there is, assuming that she's single and they want to marry her, so he didn't want to benefit from that money. He didn't want to use that. It's like cursed, not so clean. So that money he took and he gave it to these sons. He gave it to them and let them go with that. That's what he did. So that's the way he sent them away. So he sent away these 5 sons. He also sent away Ishmael already a long time ago, as we said, right? So the only one who really stayed in the family was Yitzchak, because he was the only one who was worthy to be the progenitor of the Jewish line, right, of the Torah and all these things. That's the reason why. Okay, so he says, right, he sent them away to the eastern lands, right? So meaning what? That we see until this day, right, that these people, these eastern people, are from the Muslims, over there who live in the east. That's who they are. They come from this family. Okay. So it says, right, that Avraham Avinu lived 175 years and then he died. So they say, by the way, that really he was supposed to live with 5 years more. But why HaKadosh Baruch Hu shortened his life? What's the reason why he did that? Because he didn't want him to see something bad that was going to happen, right? He didn't want him to see what was going to do with Esav. And Esav, who was his grandson, turned out to be, Rasha, a wicked person, a sinner. So he didn't want him to see what's going to happen with him, how he's going to develop. So he made him die before that in order that he shouldn't witness, what's going to come out of this kid, how he's going to turn out.
To make Esav for Rasha 5 years later, he'll give the guy extra 5 years.
You know what it is? You're right. It's a good question. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his timetable. You know what I mean? He decides. According to his wisdom.
So
timetable.
Avraham Avinu was supposed to live 5 years more.
No, it's true that the Chazal say that. I'm not saying it from my own. Right? You understand? Yeah. Chazal is saying right.
So that means that when our loved ones go, or whoever it is, they don't know what goes on. The whole saying about if my mother knew what was happening to me now, she'd be turning in a grave. I guess it's true because she doesn't really know what's happening.
Right.
She can't see it.
That's a good question. You see what it's asking? The question is, Be'emet, the very powerful question is that, do the dead know what's going on here in this world? Right? You ever heard this question before?
I heard the question. You cannot answer me why she covered.
Now we already answered. Don't worry about it.
Always mentioned that if your mother saw you now, she would be happy because you turned out to be,
So the truth is, Rabbi, that there's 2 different sources about this. Because according to the Zohar, it seems like they do know what's going on in this world. According to the Talmud, it's implied that they don't know what's going on in this world. So the question is really who's right and who's wrong. They're both right. You have to understand how it reconciles. So the way it works is like this, right? That they say that this is the reason why we go to the graves of the tzaddikim, of the righteous people, because when we go there, a person has a problem, an issue that he needs to get solved. So he goes over there and prays at the grave of that tzaddik. So he asks the tzaddik, he says, Rabbi, please pray for me to God. Go to God and ask for me that, that I could solve my problems. So there's a lot of people do this, it's a very famous thing, right? So,
I didn't know.
So the Zohar, right? Exactly. The Zohar says something interesting, by the way, that when you go to the graves of the tzaddikim to ask for help, you don't really have to tell them what the problem is. When you get there and they see you, whatever that means, they see you. How can they see you? They're not even there. But right? So what does that mean? They see you. It says in the Zohar, when they see you, they already know what your problem is, and they start praying for you at that time. In other words, once they identify you, they already know what your problem is. So it comes out from there that they know what's going on in this world. Because if they don't know, how do they know what your problem is? Who gave this information? You understand? The question is, who told this guy what's going on with you? You don't have to tell him what's going on?
Have you guys ever gone to those sites?
Yeah, I went, sure. In Israel, they have these big rabbis over there. I think it does help.
If they heard,
it definitely does help. There's no question about it. I've had some really good things that came from that. But the last time I went, which was like 2 years ago, I didn't even go into the graveyard. I just I was outside the fence, and I just passed by, and that was it. I didn't pray there.
Who can we go to here? Will they let you near the
Yeah, you go right there. You pray on top of his grave.
It's not
special canopy. It's a
garden?
special canopy. It's a square. You go inside.
So, Rabbi Tai, what's the answer to the question? The answer is, Be'emet, they're both right.
I see.
In other words, it's true that they know what's going on, and it's also true they don't know what's going on. How can that be? Both of them are true. So the answer is Rabbi Tai, like this: that when a person dies, as we always mentioned, like last week I think we mentioned, that a person has 3 parts in his soul. He has the nefesh, he has the ruach, and he has the neshama. 3 parts in his soul. What happens is when a person dies, these 3 parts get separated, right? The nefesh stays in the grave with the dead body. That's what it does. It stays over there. The ruach goes to Gan Eden, the earthly Gan Eden, which is over there in Israel, over there, Marat Machpelah. That's the entrance to Gan Eden. It goes over there. The neshama, the ruach. The neshama goes to the upper Gan Eden, the higher Gan Eden. There's also one in Shemayim, in the sky, in the heavens. There's 2 Gan Eden. There's a spiritual and there's a physical one. So what happens like this, right? That those 2 neshamot that go, one goes to Gan Eden here, one goes to the upper Gan Eden. They don't know what's going on in this world. They have no idea what's going on because they're somewhere else. You understand? They have no connection with this world whatsoever. But who does know? The nefesh, right, which is over here in the grave. He knows what's going on over here. So what happens is that nefesh has a connection with the other parts of the neshama. So what he does is he tells them, he has an antenna communication, you understand? NASA, he tells them, this is what's going on with this guy, pray for this guy. Right, they know. But they don't know, but they find out from him. He tells them, you understand? Exactly, yeah.
So what was with Hashem's... killing Abraham 5.
When you get to their proximity, they don't always know what's going on in this world. When you come close to their grave, they see you, they identify you, and that's when they know.
I see.
They don't know everything that's going on here.
I see.
You understand?
So Hashem was counting on the fact that the grandson would never.
So what we have to do is we have to go and get close to them. That's why we go there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to go at all. To explain to you, by the way, this was asking about the amazing questions. These questions.
No, they're simple stuff.
The other thing is like this: that they say that when that soul goes to Gan Eden, right, to the Garden of Eden, each one goes to a respective one, down here, up there, whatever it is. Once they get there, even if they know what's going on here, it's not the same thing anymore. You know why? It's not the same thing anymore. It's a totally different story. Can you guess why?
Really different story.
In other words, even if they know, it doesn't hurt them anymore. It doesn't affect them anymore. When you're here in this world and you see your son doing something bad, it affects you.
Yes.
You understand? Right. You're paying for that. Right. But when you're up there, even if you know, it doesn't hurt you anymore. You know why? Because when you get up there, you know the real truth. What's really going on? What's behind it? What the reasons are? Why your son has to go through that? What he's going through? You understand? So then you're comforted by that. It doesn't hurt you anymore. Once you know the real truth behind what's going on, you know the real reasons, the depths of what's going on, it doesn't hurt you anymore because Adarabah, you're very happy. Why? Because you know it has to be this way. Nothing will hurt you anymore. That's what we're saying. Understand? So, by the way, there's a story that corroborates that. They say one time there was a big rabbi, Baba Sali, the big Kabbalist from the Moroccan community. That he, what happened was that he had a brother, Yitzchak, who was also a big rabbi. So what happened was that they say that one of them died. One of the brothers died. So I think it was I think it was Baba Sali. He died, right? Baba Sali died. So Yitzchak had some kind of a problem with something that he did to his brother one day. He caused him to do something bad, whatever. So he had always Yitzchak, right? His brother, right? So Baba Sali died, right? Baba Sali died. So what happened was Yitzchak had some kind of a problem. He caused them some kind of harm in this world. Baba Sali. He caused him to do something wrong, make a mistake, whatever. So he always had this problem, in his head, why did this happen, and now, something bad is going to come out of it, and so forth and so on. So he was always worried about, grieved about it. He was grieved all the time, So they say that one time he cried about it, whatever. So Baba Sali came to him in a dream, that night. He told him, he said, Yitzchak, he says, my brother, he says, what are you crying about? He says, do you know how happy I'm over there in Gan Eden? He says, what happy about it? I have no problems over there. Everything is peachy and rosy. And you're sitting here, right, but you're crying for me, like something that happened to me. There's no reason to cry anymore. I'm in a perfect world, And that's why, by the way, that a person shouldn't waste his time worrying about the dead, He should worry about the living people, What are you worried about what's going on over there? They're doing very well, Baruch Hashem. They're in Gan Eden. They're in the best place that you could be in the world.
So they don't care about the fact that we're suffering here.
They do care, but what I'm saying is that you shouldn't be caring about what's going on over there.
You're saying.
There, over there, everything is very good. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to lose your emotions about that. Everything is doing good with them.
How do we know if they were forgiven for their sins, then?
Well, if a person was a righteous person. So for further, they're going to they're going to forgive him for his sins. And if he was a really, really wicked person, really, really bad, so then what do you care anyway? They should burn him in hell. What difference? You should be happy that it's burning him. So either way, what's the problem? You should
they weren't a wicked person, but they did some bad judgments.
Right, they did some bad things. So they're going to solve the problems over there. You understand? They're going to cleanse him over there. Whatever it's going to do, if he needs to be cleansed, they cleanse. So what are you worried about over here?
Rabbi, I wish I could believe.
In other words, we're really in the bad shape. You understand? We're really the pathetic ones, not them. They're doing much better than we are. We should be doing good like that.
I don't want to rush over there.
God bless you. God bless you. Yeah, the truth is, what he's saying is very true. They say, right, that the Gaon of Vilna, one big rabbi, Ashkenazi rabbi, they say, right, that when he was about to die, so he started to cry, this is very, very, very sad, whatever. So they came to him, they said, Rabbi, said, what are you sad about? You did everything good in your life, you lived a very good life, you did a lot of Torah, a lot of mitzvot, you did everything, what you were supposed to do. What's the big deal to you? What are you crying about? So he says, what am I crying about? He says, when I die, I won't have any chance anymore to do mitzvot, because when a person is in this world, what is he here for? To have zchuyot, to get merits, to do mitzvot.
Yeah, but then again, he did all the mitzvot. He did more mitzvot than the world will ever.
You're absolutely right. But
he's going to the next world.
Absolutely. But what he's crying about? That he didn't have a chance to do even more. Even that little bit more. You understand?
That's.
When it comes to mitzvot, a person should be greedy. You understand? Take everything you can take. Take everything you can muster.
Most people worrying about or regret. I didn't get to buy that car that I
right, exactly.
Or some materialistic crap.
Right.
I never.
So you understand what I'm saying? That the bottom line is, Rabbi, that a person really in this world should be happy that he's here. Why? Because now there's a chance to acquire mitzvot, acquire Torah mitzvot. Once a person dies, he can't do it anymore. That's it. It's gone. It's finished.
What if a person is miserable to the point?
Yeah.
Where my grandmother used to.
That what she.
God, take me already.
Right.
What is the meaning behind that? Is it a sin to be that way, or?
You know what it is? There's two kinds of things like that. One, By the way, there are certain cases where a person is really in great, tremendous pain, and because of that, his life is not worth anything to him anymore, and he really wants to die. Like he wants to get out of this world.
Pain? You're talking about physical pain, or
it could be physical pain also. Yeah, that's it could be also something more different. But I can tell you, with my rabbi, when he was, he died when he was 93. So this was like 3 years ago. So they say, right, that before he died, what happened was that he broke his back, he had a spine problem. He fell, he broke it. So the rabbis the doctors had to do surgery on him, whatever. But they said, if we do the surgery, you should know. It's going to be like excruciating pain, whatever. And, it's going to be very hard for you, but whatever. So in the end, whatever, they did what they had to do. But the pain was too great, So the rabbi was in such excruciating pain, he couldn't study Torah anymore. And his whole life was centered on that, his whole life was that. He had nothing else in his life, He wasn't watching, Georgian movies or, whatever, HBO or whatever. He wasn't doing that. That's not what he was doing. He was sitting and learning Torah all day. So they say, right, that once he got to that level where he had the pain so much, he couldn't study Torah, he asked Hashem, please, take me, what am I in this world for anymore? If I'm not doing Torah, so what am I here for? Take me away. And Hashem took him, by the way. That's what happened. Sometimes when you ask, they take you. Sometimes they say, be careful what you ask about. Sometimes you can actually be fulfilled. So when a person asks, in a situation like that, sometimes it's justified. But there are also these simple people who sometimes they just have a lot of grievances in their life. Things are not going the way they want, and they ask to die. And that's not really proper to do that. Why? Because the person is supposed to bear those things. Is supposed to go through it.
The whole test.
Right? Exactly. To bear it. That's something else.
We've tested already for 5,000 something years. When is the test going to be over?
Almost there. We're almost there.
Doesn't Hashem realize that we're not going to change?
We're almost in the promised land, David.
I see. I don't know.
We're almost in the promised land. I want to also point out one other thing. That we talked last week about the issue of having these Jewish courts, and they could do capital punishment and so forth, stoning and all these things. You understand? It's true, by the way, what you said. I want to point out this because it's true what you said, that today we don't have these kinds of courts.
Right.
So we cannot administer capital punishment in a Jewish court, obviously.
Right.
We don't have the right to do that. By the way, even if we had a court, technically speaking, we're not allowed to do it anyway.
Yeah.
There has to be certain conditions. Because it has to be done, first of all, it has to be a Sanhedrin, right? You need 70 judges, and they have to be qualifications. There's all kinds of qualifications that have to be.
Were those laws in the 5 books of Moses, or were they rabbinical laws?
What, these things?
The punishment that was...
These are in the 5 books of Moses, yeah.
So
sure,
basically, we changed those.
We can't change it. We cannot. It's just because of the timing now. You understand?
Yeah.
It only applies in certain times, in certain conditions.
So if we changed those,
We didn't change it.
We didn't change it. Hashem changed it.
No. We didn't change it. We eliminated it.
we eliminated.
Not eliminated.
Yeah.
It's temporarily suspended until the situation comes back. So
if we can do that,
not that we can, we have to do that. We have no choice.
Okay.
Understand?
So if we have to do that according to times, what's this crap about not being able to even alter or modify the Constitution? The Constitution of the United States is not some holy book.
No, you can, but you need the certain conditions also for that. Same thing,
You need certain.
You can make an amendment.
You can modify. You can amend it.
Amend it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's also change.
Amend it. Yeah. So not every punk can go into a store and buy.
You can smoke in here. It's okay.
I don't take it.
So
God bless you.
not that every maniac
I think
can walk into a store and buy a killing machine like a candy.
So what I want to tell you, let's end up here, that even though these things are not administered today, but a person shouldn't think, the Chazal say, that now you're like, you're off the hook.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Do you think that we stopped doing that because we are living in a galut? We're not living in a Jewish world.
Yeah, we're in exile. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If the world belonged to us, those things would still probably be in...
Right, and they will come back, by the way. They will be reinstated,
When the Mashiach.
Right, the Mashiach comes, yes.
Oh, right.
So now the thing is like this, but you shouldn't think, by the way, that now this gets you off the hook. Why?
No.
You know, I'll explain to you why. Because the Chazal say, even though these capital punishments they don't exist today, but what they do is they get you from Shamayim. In other words, they still do these capital punishments in Shamayim.
So the women are not off the hook.
You understand? So what does that mean?
Because I thought
they say there's 4 types of debt that a person can be liable according to the Torah. There's strangulation, there's a sword, there's the burning, right, and then there's the stoning.
Yes.
So they say if a person became liable to be stoned, what happens is that something will happen to him like that, similar to that. He'll be like a car accident, God forbid, something like that. That's how it happens. If a person is liable to be burnt, he may be bit by a snake. The venom will burn him inside his body, or he'll get burnt in a fire. You understand? So these things still apply today. HaKadosh Baruch Hu still carries them out. It's just that he carries them out now from Shamayim, not in the earthly court. That's the only difference. In a sense, a person shouldn't think, I can do what I want. It doesn't work like that.
Didn't Hashem always carry them out?
Right, but now he has to do the job of the court.